Hey folks, welcome to GrupoAmos in Colombia. I'm Grego. Today we're going to be speaking with Robinson Muñoz, who is the founder and director of Success Communications. Success is a translation and interpretation agency. And so Robinson is going to talk to us about a whole lot of language stuff, language acquisition, simultaneous translation, really kind of interesting stuff. Things that make my head swim. We're talking about doing everything in Spanish. So, hey, Robinson, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Of course, today I'm at a difficult position because it's not my native language. So I'm feeling like you fell yesterday.
We recorded an episode yesterday in Spanish, so it was not my native language, but it was his native language. So now we roles, and Robinson has to speak in English. But Robinson, your English is fantastic. So, how and where did you learn to speak English?
Well, actually, I learned here in Medellin. It took me a long time to find English in my life, because I was studying to become a mechanical engineer. Then I discovered languages and I immediately fell in love with them. And long story short, I ended up being an English teacher for about 4 years. Loved the process, loved teaching, loved interacting with people. And that actually was kind of the started point where I found translation, and then I moved into conference interpretation.
Okay. It's interesting that you say, we're doing this in English and that's not your native language, but you work as a simultaneous interpreter, you work as a translator, and as far as I can tell, your English is flawless. When we first met, I thought you were from Los Angeles because of how you spoke English, but then I thought, I don't know any American guys named Robinson, so I'm pretty sure he's Colombian. So to me, it seems that English is as strong, your English is as strong as your Spanish. Do you notice a difference between how you speak English and how you speak Spanish?
Eventually, well, sometimes, how sometimes you dream and you dream in another language. Sometimes I have dreams in English, or sometimes I'm speaking and I have no idea what language I'm speaking. Okay. So it gets to that level. When you use it a lot, it becomes like natural. But of course, when it comes to, very strong emotions, you go back to your native language. That's basically like a reaction you have, Right. But my English is good. It's good enough. I mean, I'm not there to say that it's perfect, because there's not such a thing as perfection. You need to, polish a couple of things here and there. But I think it's good enough to do what I do and to make a living out of it.
Okay. What other languages do you speak?
Well, I studied French, I studied Portuguese, and I studied sign language, which is the language of deaf people.
Right.
That language is beautiful, man. I mean, actually, one of the things about languages is we live in a very visual world. Basically, that's the way we move around. And what we're trying to do with language is just trying to tell other person what we saw or what we are seeing in the future. Right? When we're thinking about projects, when you're naming a person, you use a word just to bring the image of that person into the other person's mind. Right. And I know languages have the same thing. And the interesting thing about, for example, sign language is that they use the same method, but with no sound. Let me give you an example.
Okay.
To learn in sign language is this. Makes sense, right? That's to learn. And when you forget something, is this. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, in a sense, I would say all languages, they have a common thing, which is images.
Okay.
All languages connect to it. If you take, for example, a chair from Colombia to the States, it's the same chair. If you take it to China, it's the same chair. So the only thing that changes is the way it's pronounced, words, sounds, but it's exactly the same. We are talking about the same object.
Right, right. Okay. So it's just a matter of getting a common system for communication.
Exactly. I mean, it's amazing. And languages are amazing. I mean, the way we can actually create languages, like if you live a bunch of babies in the jungle, I'm sure they're going to come up with a language. I don't know which one, but they would create a language. That's the nature of being a human being.
I have some techniques, for example, that I use to help me further internalize Spanish. Counting. I force myself, whenever I notice it and recognize it, or whenever I'm cognizant of it, I force myself to count in Spanish. I count my change, whatever money I have in my pocket, things I'm doing, and sometimes even as an exercise, if I'm walking, I count my steps, and I count my steps as high as I can go and as fast as I'm walking, because if I can internalize it and get those numbers to come to me in Spanish that quickly, then I've got it more internal. Do you count in Spanish? Do you count in English? Are there techniques that you use to practice and keep the language in the forefront?
Yeah, I remember when I first had to learn English, the alphabet and numbers. When I was walking on the street, I used to see a car, and I just remembered the letters and the numbers in English in every single car that was passing by, just to practice, because it's true. The more you use it, it's going to be easier. So you have to force yourself to, when you're learning a language, I mean, I'm not, do not get me wrong, but for example, there are a lot of people who pay a lot of money to study abroad. They go and travel, and they go to Australia, to the United States, because they say, the only way that I'm going to be able to learn a language is I have to live in a country with the language spoken.
Right, immersion.
That's true. That's true. But also, you can go where the language is, or you can bring the language where you are. And that's basically what I did. I mean, I didn't travel to another country to learn, but I just, I just started like making a 100% commitment to learn. I say, okay, I have to read in English. I have to listen to everything in English. I have to think in English. I have to find words. I have to read books. And when I find a word that is not a word that I know, I need to find the definition in English of that word. Like be a normal process of learning the language. Listening a lot to it. I do believe that we have a memory, a different type of memories. So we have how do you call that one? Audio. What's the name of it?
Audio memory.
Audio memory. Yeah, I think it's that one. And an example of that is when you have a playlist, right? And you're listening to music. Once the song is getting to the end, you immediately know what's the next one. Yes. And then you know what's the next one. And then you know what the next one is. But you don't know the whole list by heart.
Right.
And it's because your brain, in a way, memorizes what sound comes next. So I used to listen a lot. I mean, in my times, we didn't have any MP3 players or no CDs, old school cassette. And I used to be, I was walking with a Walkman, the big one, the yellow one, with cassette, listening to English and flip it back and listen to it again. My goal was I have to understand every single word for this tape. And I stopped listening to that tape until I was, okay, I understand all. Then I moved to the next step. Because, that's what language is. You need to learn a bunch of vocabulary and then use it in context.
So that's really interesting. So you didn't go overseas to study. You basically immersed yourself where you were, and
Exactly.
develop your own system. I mean, is you this where just your logical mind took you as a way to completely learn something?
It kind of broke a little bit. Can you repeat the last part?
Sure, sure. I'm asking if someone taught you how to learn this, or if your logical mind just said, "Okay, wait, this is what
Yeah.
I need to do, and this is how I'm going to go about doing this." Is this a
Yeah.
system you
No.
developed
It was.
yourself?
It was. I just tried a lot of different things, and that was the one that worked the best.
Mm-hmm.
And it was working okay. I enjoyed listening to English. I enjoyed repeating words, and it worked, and it paid back. So I'd say, well, if it's working, let's keep doing that, and
Okay.
that's the way it was.
Okay. And so your theory is that anybody can learn and anybody can become fluent in a language as you have, without necessarily having or requiring an overseas experience, huh? Or are you unique and do you have an abnormal brain?
No. I'm not abnormal. Uh, I think we talked about it yesterday, and it has to do a lot with discipline. You have to have a schedule. You have to work hard at what you want to do. At first, I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if it has happened to you in Spanish. At first, it's very tough. I mean, it's very difficult. And I would say
Yeah.
it's like that in every single project you want to accomplish. The first portion of it is very tough and it's very difficult. And you are like, oh, this is so tough. I'm not going to be able to accomplish it. But if you build a very, like a very solid foundation,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
then it becomes easier and easier, right?
Right.
So a lot of people go, let me tell you a story which is funny. A lot of people go to the UK to study because
Right.
they say, okay, no, I need to go to a place where nobody speaks English, Spanish, I'm sorry. And then
Mm-hmm.
they go to a classroom and they have people from Chile, from Argentina, from Peru, from Bolivia. And what they end up doing is they say, oh, let's mingle and let's go around the city, and they end up speaking more Spanish than actually they speak
Right.
English.
Right.
So it's about knowing what you want and say, okay, I need to speak it. I need to speak it. There's one thing that helped me a lot, and is you need to realize something, and is that you don't have to be perfect to be what you want. So you don't have to be
Mm-hmm.
a perfect dancer to dance, and you don't have to
Mm-hmm.
speak perfectly a language to speak it. I have a lot of problems with
Mm-hmm.
my students because they felt very intimidated to practice the language. And they said,
Mm-hmm.
no, but my pronunciation is not good. And I said, well, you don't have to be perfect to communicate. I mean, you have to just speak it. And I noticed that here in Colombia, because people, we don't have a lot of languages around, so we're not used to speak, in a foreign language. So
Right.
everybody has this idea that if they don't speak it perfectly, they're not open their mouth because they're afraid. And they don't notice that if they don't practice, they would never learn. So they concentrate on the safe part of the learning process, which is the grammar, the vocabulary, the exercises.
Sure.
But they never try to talk, and they never try to make friends or to, because practicing is what makes perfect.
Yeah.
When I was in my process of learning the language, I noticed that. I said, well, I'm very good at grammar. I'm very good at vocabulary. I understand this.
Mm-hmm.
But my speaking skills I'm not good at speaking. So I said, well, I have to face this. And I started inviting friends, and I created conversation clubs.
Right. Okay.
And
Okay.
I said, let's have a conversation club in English. People say, like, conversation, what? So, well, yeah, we just meet and we talk and we practice the English. They say, oh, yeah, but who's going to organize that? I said, well, I'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that as I told them, look, I'm not a perfect teacher. I'm not a teacher. I just want to practice. Let's practice. The first time we went to the zoo, and I remember, and we walk around, and we learned a lot of vocabulary about animals, and we tried to talk in English the whole time, and it worked. And then I continued inviting more people, and we kept on having a lot more people coming and having a lot of conversation in class. That helped me. The only way you improve is by working on your weakness.
Sure. I agree. When I was learning Spanish in high school, I was very shy. I didn't like to speak in English. And so my Spanish teacher always complained I needed to talk more. And it was oppressive to me. I read very well. And I took AP Spanish. I was reading Gabriel Garcia Marquez, Pablo Neruda. I was reading lots of Spanish literature in the original language, understanding it, but I couldn't speak it. And I was traveling with my father years later, still very shy. And we were in the airport in Houston. And there were two Mexican girls who were traveling by themselves. They were young girls, teenagers, and they wanted to make a collect phone call home. And of course, we're talking ages ago, before cell phones. So they had a payphone, and they had to call a United States operator and ask in English to be connected with a Mexican operator to make a collect call to their home. And I helped them make this phone call, and you're speaking to them in Spanish and facilitating the conversation with the operator in English. And that taught me, I started to lose my shyness. And I realized that they didn't care if I made grammatical mistakes. They were desperate for help, and I helped them. So it made me realize it's about personal connections and communication between people. You know,
that's true.
And you mentioned dance, and I'll give a second quick anecdote. The other thing the other element that got me to overcome my shyness was dancing and being in a club and asking women to dance. And I realized once I learned how to dance, and I had marketable skill on the dance floor, I just ask them to dance, and that again, a method of communication and a method of personal contact. And after a while, I just wasn't shy anymore.
Well, you're not shy at all. You are cured, 100% cured.
So Robinson, you've got English. Tell me a little bit about the evolution of your agency's Success Communication Services. How did you start, and how did you bring it up to where it is now? And where is it now? Tell us about it.
So let me tell you about the company. Success Communication Service. Those are three words are the key of what the company means. Success, communication, and service. Communication is the key, because basically what we are trying to do is help people to communicate. We have different business lines. One of them is written translations. We have official translations where we help people who want to travel abroad. They need to translate their, certificates, references, resumes, a lot of legal documents. So we do all that translation. But also we have the part about simultaneous interpretation. And that's when, here in Colombia, thank God we getting a lot of people coming to give lectures, to present different ideas. And a lot of people understand English, but a lot of them don't. And that's where we have this service where we rent equipment and we have the interpreters and we provide that service.
Okay.
The company started as an accident. I was an English teacher. I love teaching, and on the side, I was getting some translation documents. And I'm kind of a nerd person, I'm a bookworm. So I was, oh, this is interesting. I'll translate it just for the sake of doing it and learning a little bit more about it. And little by little, I started getting a lot more work. And then I got to a point where I was tired of teaching, not because of people, because I love people. I also study a little bit of psychology. That's another story. And interacting with people was fantastic. So, but the problem in medicine is that people study English because they have to study English. So it's not really a passion for languages. And so the time they study, it's 6 a.m. in the morning, noon, and late in the evening. So that combination, of course, I got a lot of courses, but I was getting up at 4 a.m. in the morning, planning classes, teaching at 6 a.m., and then going somewhere else to teach at about 10 or 12, and then teaching the last class until 8:30, and then going to bed about, I got tired. So I saw a potential. I said, well, I'm getting a lot of translations. This could work. So I said, okay, let's do it. So I opened the company, and it was very scary time because I moved from a secure job where you get a check every month, to where I have no idea how much money I'm going to be making. And at the beginning, it was very tough. I remember going on my motorcycle, going around trying to find customers, and I was basically doing everything. I was translating, printing, checking, proofreading, delivering translations. But little by little, I was able to organize. And thank God the company started growing and growing and growing. And now we moved from having only about like a couple of people at the office to right now we have about 20 freelance translators working with us, plus people at the office. So in total, it's about 30 people. And they have an impact of about, I would say that one person with the money that they are making in success, they are impacting about 5 people more. So my count is, I would say the company has an impact in about 150 people, direct and indirect. And then we're getting a lot of clients and new customers because one of the key in the translation business is speed. Let me tell you what. With the communications we have today, everybody needs a translation. I mean, companies are, publishing things and they need it translated by yesterday. All the content that is produced in the world needs to be translated. And unfortunately, we don't have enough translators to translate it. Imagine that. So exactly. So, and when people want to travel to a foreign country, they need papers now because they have to apply for a visa now. They have to do all the process in no time. So we're very good at that. I noticed that, and I'm very good at that. We have a system where the person delivers. We immediately put that into a document. We translate it, proofread it, and deliver it in 24 hours or less. So that helps. The company is great. I mean, I'm very happy with it. I mean, the company, unfortunately, there's not such a thing as perfection. So, I would like it to be a lot more independent for me. But that's another story. But the company is doing great, and it was thanks to the accident of learning a language.
It sounds like you went from being translated to being an entrepreneur.
Exactly.
With all of what entrepreneurism brings, lots of rewards, but also lots of headaches and lots and lots and lots of hard work, right?
Yeah, and especially that word, it's very famous nowadays.
Sure.
Be an entrepreneur. And I ended up being an entrepreneur, and unfortunately, But the reality is, I would say I would do better alone because I wouldn't have to work that much, and I would be able to, probably make the same money, but I wouldn't have the impact of the people. And if you do it alone, you're gonna get faster wherever you want to go. But if you go with a group, you're gonna get farther. And with the group, little by little, things are getting better, and hopefully, sooner or later, the company's gonna be a lot more independent for me, and I'm gonna be able to concentrate on other things.
Sounds excellent. Sounds excellent. Tell me a little bit. I'm interested in the process of entering the interpretation market, and also the process, the job itself, simultaneous interpretation. Tell me a little bit how you got into it, and describe the process, and what it all means.
Okay, interpretation in Colombia is a very interesting animal, to be honest. Number one, we don't have a degree in Colombia where you can get conference interpreters.
Right.
So basically, you become a conference interpreter in Colombia because you really like it, or because just someone introduced you to it, and you end up doing it.
Right.
So in my case, it was kind of an accident. Someone once told me we need a person for the simultaneous translation. Actually, the right word is interpretation, but everybody says translation.
Right.
I said, what is that? I said, well, a person is going to come here. It's a guy from Home Depot. He's going to go to Home Center. He's going to be walking around, making sure that everything is very well organized based on the marketing trends. I was, okay, I think I can do that. I never done it, but I try. So I sent a proposal to the manager at Home Center, and the guy called me and said, hey, Robinson, I have 3 proposals. One is too cheap, and I don't think that's okay. The other one is too expensive. I don't think that's okay. Yours is all right. Do you have an experience? And I said, no, I don't have an experience. Actually, my own experience is in teaching, and I love languages. And the guy said, all right, let's see what happens. And when I did it, it's like a rush. It's like you get addicted to it. I got addicted to it. It's like, it's a lot of adrenaline, because you have to be there. You have to be paying attention to every single word, and you have to be ready to answer. And I liked it, and I was like, "Whoa, this is something I could do." And I started doing it more and more. But of course, I didn't know where to go to learn it. And when you ask a person who is an interpreter, "Hey, I want to be an interpreter," they say, "Okay, sure," but they don't have like a way to teach you. Right. So I started training myself how to become a good interpreter, and that involves a lot of different techniques and things. One of the most important ones is learning how to do something that you don't do every day, which is you have to listen, you have to speak at the same time. You have to listen and really understand, and you have to speak at the same time. And to top it up, it has to be in 2 different languages.
Right.
So at first, what I did was training myself to do that in my language, in Spanish. So I started listening to the news and repeating every single word in Spanish. Spanish and Spanish, just repeating, you know. And then I after I felt very comfortable doing that, I started doing it, but then summarizing. So the same thing the guy said, but with a different touch. With less words, with more words. And then I did the same in English, and then started doing it in Spanish and in English, and translating and vice versa. And this market here is about word of mouth. If you're good, everybody knows.
Right.
If you're bad, everybody knows. Exactly. So you start getting recommended, and then it's about, the more you do it, the better you get at it, and then you get recommendations for people, and then say, you're a simultaneous interpreter. Yes, I am. Who have you translated for? Oh, I work for these companies. Okay, no problem. Yeah. You can work.
You develop a track record. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
There are a couple of things I want to highlight on what you said. One, similar to how you acquired English and the other languages you speak, you developed a system for training and practicing, right?
Okay.
Two, you talked about something you're not used to doing, which is speaking and listening at the same time. And it also occurred to me that one thing we have to do, or you have to do as a simultaneous interpreter, is speak. You listen, right? You listen in one language, you speak at the same time, and you really can't listen to what you're saying. You have to listen. So it's like you have to divide the audio capacity, or your ears, your mind's capacity for hearing, right? So you're listening to someone, you're speaking at the same time, but you can't listen to yourself, right?
You actually listen to yourself as well, because you need to check the way you sound, Mm-hmm. It's I would say what happens in simultaneous interpretation is that you mix both languages to a point where you are able to understand both at the same time. It's complicated, but what happens is, as I told you yesterday, we visualize the world, so we see everything. So when I'm telling you a story, you see the story. I'm telling you. Yesterday, I told you a story, and I said yesterday, I was walking on the street, and a black dog was chasing me, mm-hmm. And you probably saw the same image. Yeah. And one example of that is universal words like names. When you say, for example, a famous person, Gandhi, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That word brings the face of that guy in all languages.
Sure.
So what I do is, of course, it all depends on the topic. When I'm listening in English, I start visualizing everything, and when I'm speaking in Spanish, it's not that I think in Spanish or I think in English. I think in images. Exactly. So because if you start translating every word, the translation is going to be crappy. It's not going to work.
Right.
Because there are expressions that you cannot deliver properly, or there are words that you cannot translate. Jokes are very hard to translate because they depend on cultural background. And also, if you want to be a successful interpreter, it's not about being bilingual. It's about being bicultural. You need to understand the culture, and you need to understand the world, and you need to understand how an American person or an English-speaking person sees the world. Mm-hmm. Let me give you an example. I don't know if you noticed this, but probably you have. In Spanish, we use a lot of passive voice, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. In passive voice, the person that executes the action is gone. I mean, it's not there, right? Right. But in English, it's more about active voice. English uses active voice as well, but that changes the way people think about the world. In Spanish, people have a tendency to not be responsible for their actions. Huh. So they say things like, the computer was broken.
Right.
When they broke it, right?
Right.
An American person would say like, oh, I broke the computer. I did something wrong. I don't know, but it's not working. And I don't know if you noticed that the Colombian people, they have a tendency to blame like an external person for what happened, and sometimes they're not able to say, you know, I did it, and yeah, I'm responsible for it, right? And that happens. For example, children say things like, "The glass was broken," and you say, "Well, but that's impossible. You broke it." No, it was broken when I arrived here. No, you broke it. And it's because of the language. It's because of the way the language is structured. And I don't know if it has happened to you here that people say, yes, I'm going to be there. I'll be there. Yeah, sure, no problem. I'll go. 15 minutes before, they call you and say, I can't go because.
Yeah, and
something happened.
Because is usually a fairly far-fetched story.
Exactly. So it's about that. It's understanding the culture. It's understanding, you know, what, because sometimes you have to play that game of make the other person understand the culture, because otherwise there's not going to be a proper communication.
That's very interesting. So as you work, someone speaks to you, or someone is speaking. They're not speaking to you. You're just there. So someone is speaking in one language. That language goes into your, becomes images, and then those images come out of your mouth in another language. Is that kind of
that's one of the strategies that I do, because you know, that's what it is. I mean, you have to use that connections with images to be able to remember and to better explain things. It's like, I don't really remember Greek people. They needed to give a lot of long lectures.
Yeah.
And, you know, they used their house to remember the things they want to say. And that's where the expression in the first place.
Okay.
It's because they learn a portion of the speech, for example, in a room. And then they move to another room and learn another portion of the speech, and then to another one. So to be able to remember it all. And that's why we have expressions like in the first place.
In the first place, yeah. I was talking to an English student today, and I was telling him where the word understand comes from, which is when constructors, builders would have a foundation, or say for example, the first floor, and it was set up a certain way, and they would have to underneath to look up to verify that everything was correct, everything was as it should be, and basically they were standing under the thing that they were verifying and looking up to confirm that everything was all right. And then from that, the word understand comes, because you're standing under something, and you understand, meaning you conceptualize, you comprehend it from underneath.
That's
more complex. And that's where the word understand comes from.
That's very interesting. Yeah, didn't know that. Thanks.
Okay, well, language to me is phenomenal. Language is phenomenal, and I'll mention a quick way how my mind works. When I was learning Spanish, when I first moved to Spain, and I thought I spoke Spanish, got there, realized I didn't, but I always had a pad and paper with me, and I wrote down all the new words, because I can hear a word many different times. It goes in and comes out. Unless I see the word written, the way I retain things is by seeing it written. That's the way my mind works. So when I learn a new word, the only way I can learn it is to write it myself. And that's how it sticks in my head. So that was my technique. And even today, you know, on my cell phone, I have a note with different words and alphabetized, and I put new words in it. But I don't learn a word until or a person's name, especially if they have not a common name, until I write it down. I don't learn it. So,
that's interesting because you're using your body to learn. So it tells me that you are a physical person. You have to write it down. You have to, you know, to move to learn.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I learn by doing, and so I can read a book and it doesn't really do much to me or for me. But if I do it myself, boom, I've got it.
There you go.
So yeah, and one of the reasons why, I mean, I love learning to dance, and it's something that I internalize. Once I, you know, my process is to get it. It goes in through my head, but I want to get it then out of my head into my body, and then not have to think about it.
There you go.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, so. Okay, so Robinson, this is all really interesting. What are some of the, you know, you talked about building your company to be more independent of you. I find leverage that you've managed with 30, 20 freelancers and then 10 employees, leveraging impact on 150 people. I mean, that's fantastic. Congratulations. What's the future for Robinson Muñoz and Success Communication Services?
Well, the company wants to take the company to make it a global company. Want to aim at the world. You know, basically, we have a lot of work to do. There's a lot of translations that need to be done, and I'm sure that if I start getting a portion of the market, of the global translations, I could get some of that. So my plan is to start working more internationally, more companies from Europe or from the States. That's one thing for sure. Okay. And regarding myself, I want to start being able to be a lot more independent from the company. When you have a company, the company cannot have you, right? Because that's bad. Right. If the company relies on you 100%, that's not a company. That's something else. So it's hard to do that because you need to delegate a lot of staff. You need to be on top of processes. But I'm learning little by little. I mean, it's difficult. I mean, it's rewarding. And definitely, I want success to thrive and to keep going and impacting a lot more people. That's what I want to do.
Okay. And let me bring back I see these parallel tracks. The same way you developed a system to learn English, then you develop a system to learn how to interpret, and then you develop a system to build and launch your business. Am I hearing all this correctly?
Well, I think you need to have strategy. You need to have a method to do things, and different methods for different things, and that's what I try to do. You need to get a lot of say that
different methods for different things, but the constant is discipline. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So definitely, if you try to. When you look at successful people, what they all have in common is discipline. They are very strict about what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. Right. And of course, if you, it's like, because, you know, for example, exercising, if you go to the gym today, you're not going to be in shape tomorrow, right?
Right.
You have to go to the gym over and over, 1 day, 2, 3, 4, 1 month, 3 months, 1 year, the question is, when do you become fit?
Mm-hmm.
No one knows. In 20 times, in 30 times, the only way you become fit is by doing it in disciplined fashion, doing it every day.
Yeah.
But no one knows when you're going to become fit. Or, for example, if you say, I want to learn Spanish, okay, how many classes should I take? 1, 2, 1 month, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? No one knows. The only thing you can assure is that if you do it constantly, you're gonna get there. But it's about discipline.
It's about discipline and consistency, and also recognizing that I think what happens if people set a goal, and the goal might be, I want to speak Spanish, I want to dance tango, and they lose sight of the process because they see this goal out there and it's in the future, and it seems insurmountable. But to me, for example, the question is, if you start going to the gym, what's not important is that I went today or I went yesterday, but what's important is the link between yesterday and today, and the link between yesterday, today, and a month from now, right? If I can link all of those individual visits to the gym, the link is the consistency, and it's that consistency from which I get being fit, or I would say being more fit, because it's like that perfection doesn't exist. And even I've spoken Spanish now for or learned Spanish, or have been learning Spanish for a number of years, and I see that I'm still improving, I'm still getting better. So it's a matter of constantly recognizing, don't look at a final goal, but maybe just the process. And if I can embrace the process, then it's fine. I'm in the process.
Yeah. One of the problems I see, for example, with any project you have, is that people pay too much attention about the end of the process. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. People say, I want to have a six-pack.
Right.
And they fell in love with a six-pack. Mm-hmm. But you have to fall in love with the process, which is getting up early, go jogging, going to the gym, eating well, and doing all that. Right. The same, you are falling in love with the wrong part of the project. Yeah. You cannot, because people say, I want to be rich. Yeah, but you have to fall in love with the process of becoming rich, which is a whole different story. Uh-huh. Or I want to be healthy. Yeah, but you have to be in love, not with that final goal, but basically with the process. The process is what takes you there. Sure. That's the mistake people make.
Okay. Excellent. Well, Robinson, thank you very much. We can wrap this up. I have a new thing. It's new today. This is the first time I'm asking this.
Okay.
Because this is GrupoAmos in Colombia, I want to know, you're Colombian, you're from here, you grew up in Medellin, but you have experienced and visited a bunch of other countries. So tell me, what to you is, and I'm sure this is an unfair question, but what's the best thing about?
Say that again. What is the best thing about?
What's the best thing about Colombia for you?
That's easy because I'm a Colombian. I would say Colombia it's very diverse. I don't know if you travel the country, but Colombia has we have two oceans, we have mountains, we have valleys, we have hot weather, we have cold weather, we have different cultures and people, and that makes us very unique. I would say uh, Colombia is great because we have a lot of interesting things to do in a very small geography. And and that's something I love about Colombia, that I can go to the ocean and spend some time there. I can go to a cold place. I can eat different dishes. I can meet a lot of different cultures and a lot of different way of ways of life. And that's what I love about Colombia. That's I never get tired of Colombia, to be honest. And I would never live in another country. I'm a Colombian and I love Colombian and I would die here in Colombia.
Ah, excellent, excellent answer. Well, Robinson, thank you very much. Um, I wish you continued success with success. I'm laughing
That's for sure.
as we had this conversation yesterday in Spanish. This didn't occur to me because it's not necessarily a play on words that you can do in Spanish. Well, yeah, I guess I can do éxito con éxito, but no, it
Yeah.
wouldn't work. The name of the agency is Success. So
Yeah.
if we're speaking Spanish, I would still have to say éxitos con tu agencia Success. But here in English, I can say
Yeah.
I wish you success with success.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, folks. Thanks a lot. Thanks for joining us. Robinson, thank you again.
You're welcome.
That's it for today from GrupoAmos in Colombia. We'll see you next time. Ciao,
Correct.
folks.
Bye.